There once was a time where I didn't know what abundance really was, or what having an abundance mindset really was. Because at the time, I had never really had abundance before. What abundance really boils down to is better, more, please, and thank you. Those are the four aspects of an abundance mindset. The reason being, and this is something that goes along with the law of attraction for the people that are interested in the law of attraction. I don't really adhere to those kinds of laws per se that people talk about. I'm more about having a particular frame of mind in which you're able to look at the painting of your life. Because the frame in which you put everything in is going to be the most important aspect of the picture itself. Because sometimes the frames are worth more than the actual picture, but sometimes you can have a really terrible frame and a very beautiful looking picture. And though the picture is worth a lot, the frame really isn't. But when you can combine both with a great frame of mind and a great picture and a great perception of your life, then there's so many things that can be added unto you, which is why it's more, better, please, and thank you. When you are having an abundance mindset, the main difference between a closed mindset and an abundance mindset, because I think it would be helpful to understand the polarities between abundance and not. When you're not in an abundance mindset, you're in a scarcity mindset, correct? So, what exactly does that mean? It means that you feel as though you're limited to your access to things in the universe. And everything that you do in this life is going to send out some kind of wave of being. Thinking about it from a perspective of when you throw a rock into a still lake, there's going to be ripples that happen around that spot where you cast your stone, right? So when you cast that stone, if you are casting your stone in a river that is going really fast and is moving too fast that you can't see it, you're going to throw your stone and it's going to be lost into the river. And that's the way I think about having a scarcity mindset, is because everything's just moving too fast for you to even compute. And it makes you anxious, and it makes you really just not in tune with the flow of life, really. When you're trying to actually put a force and make something into the world. So an abundance mindset comes from when you can see with the clear mind, which represents the lake that is still, and you throw the stone into the lake, and it has this huge ripple effect, and then it comes still again after some time. That's what it's like to have an abundance mindset, is where you can throw what you want to create into your life into the stillness of your own life within, because everything starts from within, right? So when you start from that within quality, you're able to have many different options open up to you, because the ripples are going to spread out to the entire surface area of the lake, if the rock is large enough. And the rock, or the stone in this case, can represent your intention, and your effort is the actual throw itself. And it's going to take effort to, like, the bigger the intention and the bigger the dream, the more effort you're going to have to push and place in order to get that dream out into the world. So that's one way you can think about an abundance mindset. There's also a variety of mythological stories on faith that could be very helpful. For example, there was once a time when a man entered into a meadow, and he wanted a place to sit, and so he found a tree. Just like that, he found a tree. And so he sat under the tree, and then he thought about how nice it would be if he could get something to eat. So he wandered a little bit, and then, oh, there was a tree. There was an apple tree, or there was a peach tree over there. So he had so many different kinds of trees available for him to pick some food from. And then he wandered, and he would be thinking about how thirsty he was now in this hot sun in the midday. And so he found a river, found a nice clean river to drink out of. Just like that. But this man was a very unique man. He didn't have a sense of urgency to him. He wasn't in a rush, but he just knew what he wanted to do, and he knew what he wanted to get, and he knew what he wanted to do to move forward in his life, however naturally it was. Now, this story has been told by other kinds of sages and gurus, I guess you could say. And the main message of the story is that when you have faith, the difference between faith and belief is that you can believe anything you want. You can believe that the sky is green. Obviously, it's not green, it's blue. And unless you're colorblind, generally speaking, everybody's going to, like here on Earth, we operate on generalities. Yes, there are exceptions, but for the most part, we operate on generalities. So, unless you're colorblind or something, of course the sky is going to be blue. Now, that you can believe that the sky is purple, even though you can look at it and clearly see it's blue, right? So you can believe whatever you want. I can believe whatever I want. Anybody can believe whatever they want to make meaning in their life. But the difference between faith and belief is that faith is a trust, is more of an act of, and more of an act thereof. An act of faith is, as Kierkegaard talks about in his book, I think I have it here. Yes. The fear and trembling, and then the sickness unto death. The way that he describes faith is actually by being a knight of faith. And by being a knight of faith, if I remember correctly, yes, love to God may cause the knight of faith to give his love to his neighbor, the opposite expression to that which, ethically speaking, is required by duty. And therefore, individual desires to express absolute duty to the universal, to become conscious in this duty, in that he is in temptation. And even supposing that he puts up the resistance to this, he never gets to the point of fulfilling the so-called absolute duty. And if he does not resist, then he sins. And even though reality, his act, that which is an absolute duty to do, is what he is to do. And so in here, he's actually talking about the story of Abraham and how God commanded him, I'm just going to put this here for now. God commanded him to kill his own son. which is a very strange thing, but Abraham still acted in faith, and it wasn't until the last moment when God told Abraham to stop that he actually was able to stop, because the angels came down and told him to, no, don't do it. And so it's like, that's a weird thing to do. Like, why would God ask to sacrifice your own son? But it's not, the story is very, it seems very sadistic on the surface to some degree, right? Because it's almost like God is like taking, if you were to look at this from a very first glance, it would be like God is kind of taking this pleasure in torturing Abraham to please God and then to kill his own son. But that's not the case at all. It's the willingness. It's the willingness to trust in where his soul is taking him. And so that is the difference between faith and belief. Belief can be about anything, but faith is very contingent upon how you experience the world and what you plan to do in that experience, and to trust that the thing that you want to happen will actually happen. So I can think of many times in my life where I took a leap of faith or an act of faith, really, both I suppose, such as leaving certain kind of relationships that I had wanted to not leave behind. So when I left those kinds of relationships, and I've seen this in other people's lives as well, when they leave these relationships that are not serving them to their highest spiritual channel in life, things end up going better. Even though it may not seem like it in the short term, in the long term, in retrospect, it was the correct decision. And the reason that it was the correct decision was because you were able to look ahead. Like, if you're thinking about like chess, like in the game of chess, you think about 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 moves ahead. So you have to have some kind of strategy in life to go about things. So if you happen to think 4 or 5 moves ahead, you know that you're going to be in a better position than you were 4 or 5 moves earlier. And the reason for that is because you were able to see with discernment the probability of your success in these strategies. So leaving these relationships, what do you prioritize when you leave a relationship? You prioritize your peace, usually. That's something that I would hope people prioritize in relationships. I know that's not the norm nowadays, but but that is something that I think ought to be prioritized, is some peace of mind. And secondly, some form of intimacy, whether that is emotional intimacy or spiritual intimacy or physical intimacy in your relationships. I mean, think about the last time that you had a really warm hug and how nice that hug felt. And if you've never really been a hugger or anything like that, just think about the last time you had a physical sensation with somebody else and you just felt their presence very clearly and it was very warm in nature. Those are the kinds of people that you want surrounded by. The people that when they touch you and you can just feel this sense of iciness in their energy. I know that sounds kind of strange to some people, but in my experience, especially with narcissists, there were times when I would not like to touch, like them to touch me in any way, shape, or form, because I could feel when they touched me, I could just feel the the pain that they're going through inside internally. And I didn't like having that feeling because I'm like most people watching this, I'm a very empathetic person, and I can have this very sharp ability to feel what other people are feeling. So, especially around narcissists, it's not very fun to be touched in those kinds of ways. Even if it's just a handshake, sometimes I don't like shaking people's hands if I know that they have their energy off. Uh, Even a touch on the shoulder, I'm not a big fan of that. And not only because I just don't like the energy, but it's because in the environment that I grew up in, I didn't really know what was going to happen. And it was very chaotic emotionally to some degree. And so I never knew who was really looking over my shoulder, or who was looking, or when I needed to look over my shoulder just to like live my life. So I don't like people just sneaking up on me because it's just not comfortable for me. But this goes back to the scarcity mindset, and this goes back to the abundance mindset as well. Is when you have the abundance mindset that there are people that are warm hearted, that are courageous, bold, and strong in your life, then you will not have to worry about anything. And you'll be like the man in the story where you just live your life and you're like, oh, this would be kind of nice. And like, oh, thank you. Like, please, this would be great. Thank you. Again, the four principles: more, better, please, and thank you. I think those are a great frame to work around anything, and that'll help your picture of life be more radiant each day. So with that being said, I hope this message was useful and gave you some different kind of dynamics to look into on abundance mindset and attraction in what you are looking for in the world, and how you can put effort in to achieve it. And with that being said, peace be with you. Till next time.